So it's been a minute since I've done a full-on, full-fledged rant. It's been probably a couple of months, I'll say. And what I can tell you is that for sure, when it comes down to it, I think, I love Apple. I'm going to get that out of the way. Okay. I am a consumer of their products. I love their products. And I feel like because I use them, I use an iPhone 12 Pro as my main device. I kind of get more, or we get more insight, the people who use iPhones every day, we kind of get more insight on just how their products run, how they pretty much go day to day. And it's not just me, just because I have an iPhone or two doesn't mean my opinion matters more than yours. If I used a Samsung as an everyday device, I would probably find a billion things wrong with them too. But I just kind of find recently, within the last couple of years, Apple is making weird decision after weird decision. And it just seemed like there was a time, I think around that 2017 to about 2018 timeframe, probably even like 2016 to 2018, Apple was still kind of breaking that mold of being the most expensive phone, year after year. Now they aren't really the most expensive phone, but at that time we had phones like the Samsung Galaxy S8 and the S9 and the S8 Plus and S9 Plus, and a ton of OnePlus devices and all these other phones, and even the Pixel lineup kind of increasing in price overall, and it kind of made Apple seem more of like a better deal at that time. If you look back with like the Pixel 3 XLs and all these devices, they were increasing in prices while Apple was still kind of staying the same. They still had the iPhone 10, which was $1,000, which was a crazy amount at that time. But nowadays that doesn't seem like crazy, but we still had things like the charging brick. We still had a lot of different things inside of them. And I will tell you, going from an iPhone 10 or even from an iPhone like 7 Plus that we had in 2016 to the iPhone 10s or iPhone 10R up in 2018, there were some major differences. But nowadays, it just kind of seems like Apple is taking a weirder approach, and they're just trying to suck up as much money and decrease their costs as much as possible. And my biggest problem isn't even that. My biggest problem is them extending out, crazy features and, probably not even crazy features, like features we've had already for years on other devices and like other sectors, such as Samsung's, Androids, whatever, that we haven't really gotten on Apple yet, which is so weird. And the biggest thing is every single time I see every year, like, oh, these next iPhones are going to be getting this or this or this, you don't really feel like, the fear of missing out. You don't really feel like you're missing out on anything super crazy if you pick up this year or last year's or whatever. But it just seems like Apple right now is in this weird limbo phase where they're purposely stretching out their, pretty much the features that we all want in a phone, but they're purposely stretching them out so they have something to update to next year. Now, case in point, this is probably the most realistic thing ever. It was Touch ID under the display. So Ming-Chi Kuo and a lot of other people right now are basically rumoring out that next year's iPhones, the iPhone 13, 13 mini, all these iPhones are pretty much going to be getting Touch ID under the display. Now, that in and of itself, I think is a really awesome thing. I mean, I've been wanting it for so long. I really miss Touch ID. And that's why I always recommend phones like, the iPhone 8 Plus, the iPhone SE2, and just older iPhones with Touch ID. Because nowadays we are in a position where we're all wearing masks, and I do understand that you can, put in Face ID with your mask on, and there's like some workarounds, but it's still very annoying. When I'm out in public and I'm wearing a mask and I'm going day to day, I have to put in my passcode every single time, and it's so obnoxious, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to be able to go swipe on my phone and move on. Now, like I said, you can put Face ID with the mask on, but the security is just not there because a lot of our facial features are, on most of the face, and if it's just our eyes being there, it's probably not going to be the same. So the security automatically goes down, but I'm really jealous of, Samsung users. I own every single Samsung phone, but I don't use it as a main device. That's the problem. These phones, since the Galaxy S10 and even before that on the OnePlus lineup, I think, we've had inbuilt fingerprint sensors in the display, but Apple just didn't push it out this year. This was the most current time to push out a fingerprint sensor in the display, to bring Touch ID under the display, and they didn't do it. I have heard some things that maybe they may unlock it on the iPhone 12s, but those are just rumors. If we would have, there's been people who took apart the iPhone 12s, I'm sure they would have found some type of sensor on the display. That doesn't really seem to be the case, and that just kind of showcases, that Apple was just pushing out the specific Touch ID under the display as far as possible, as long as they can go, just because they wanted something to update to next year. And this is just so obvious, because this is the time and place to put something like that. They're so obsessed with it, just doesn't really make any sense to me why they would take that approach, like, do they not want, I don't know, it's very weird, but that was the one case that was so obvious. They purposely try to push out updates further on, so basically you can go and update to next year. But the iPhone 12 lineup wasn't even a crazy big upgrade. It was pretty much the same thing. I think the most important thing that we got from the whole entire iPhone 12 series was probably the iPhone 12 mini. I think that was the most important thing, but that's just a separate phone, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really like it's a feature, it's just a phone that you can purchase. But they increased the prices for all the devices. They gave us less items in the box, but they gave us more problems. Like, the iPhone 12s have so many problems. I'm not getting half the text. My phone is being weird all the time, and it just seems like the longer and longer I own it, the more and more problems I have with it, which is very weird. Typically, it's not like that. Typically, the longer you own a phone, the more stable it gets. But that's the other thing. Did they not test this phone before they shipped it out? Like, I don't understand what's going on with Apple right now. They're being extremely, extremely weird for the time being. And the other thing, which I don't really understand what was going on, but we haven't had an iOS update in a very long time. The last one we got was iOS 14.2.1, and the reason I love Apple are, basically the frequent updates, but the longevity in updates as well. I know if there's going to be a problem, Apple can go ahead and fix it, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. They probably will be pushing out iOS 14.3 today, as far as I know, which is Monday, December 14th, but it's just so weird that they spent this much time. I mean, I can look back on my calendar, but I honestly don't remember the last time we got an iOS update. It's been at least a couple of weeks. I don't even know. It's been a long, long time. I mean, I'm sure it was probably like mid-November or something like that, maybe a little later, but that's still extremely weird. Like, why are they spending this much time between updates, especially when there's this big of an update that has had these many problems? So I think the biggest takeaway, at least recently, what I can see is that Apple is definitely kind of they're kind of like trying to save as much money as possible, but trying to blanket over, like basically put a blanket statement on, we are doing this for the environment, we are doing this because of a greater cause. But that doesn't really seem to be the case. And we just saw the other day that Apple actually has to go ahead, and I think in Brazil or somewhere in South America, they actually have to go and put the charging bricks back into their boxes because it actually, doesn't, do anything about the environment or whatever the case was. I'll go ahead and leave that link down below, that article, or I'll just paste it on the screen if I forget, or you can just search for it on iPhone Brazil, it'll probably show up. But that's another crazy thing. And even in other Apple, manufacturing plants, I think in India, there's another place over there where a bunch of people are protesting. I think a bunch of people stole iPhones there too, which was a crazy article. But that's another case in point. It just seems to be like month after month or week after week, we're kind of seeing a different aspect of Apple. And I'll definitely say year after year, I think the top pinnacle of Apple was like 2018 to 2019. They were releasing so many products. They were doing so many awesome things. And it definitely feels like going from the iPhone XS to the 11 Pro, that was a pretty big upgrade. But going from the 11 Pro to the 12 Pro wasn't that big of an upgrade. And I've said that time and time again, but it just seems like there's a bigger cause behind that. They purposely try to push out updates. They're being extremely strange in how they're presenting, they're trying to do their cost measurements and trying to save as much money as possible, but trying to relay that back to the environment. I find that very weird, again, because even some other countries and some governments are sniffing through that, and they're like, well, that's not completely the case. You actually have to go and put the charging brick back in there and all that stuff. And if they really cared, then they would probably just take away all the paper, put just digital documents and all that other stuff. I heard I don't know who tweeted it or somebody said that, but that's another strong point. I didn't make that up, but that was what somebody said, and I totally agree with that. So I think right now Apple is in a weird limbo phase where they have to just take an approach that I think Samsung takes, which is just put as many features as you can at that time on your device, but beyond that, just be transparent and try not to. I mean, Samsung is going to take away the charging brick now, and all these other companies are too, but it just seems like there's a really weird thing going on right now. And I think after this specific phase, Apple's probably going to become victorious, like how they were, I think, back in about 2015, about the iPhone 6s phase. They were kind of going through this specific situation too. But I think after this, we're probably going to get a really good 2021 from Apple, hopefully. I mean, I'm hopeful for it. So that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.